I had an affair with my wife's identical twin sister. I have been told that twins have some kind of psychic trait. I know I watched programs about it on an educational channel and was fascinated. The reason for my watching these programs and this fascination is because my wife Brenda has a twin sister. When I say twin sister, I mean specifically a twin sister. Usually even identical twins have obvious differences. One is a little taller, the other has mannerisms that over time a person may notice. They often enjoy dressing and acting alike, watching the reactions of others. I already knew a little about twins. I went to school with one pair, and they were always playing pranks on everyone. But these two girls, I could tell the difference in just a few seconds. Brenda and Linda are so close that whoever planted their seed in the womb was a great success. On the outside, I just couldn't tell any difference. Believe me, I looked. In the case of Brenda and Linda, being able to tell one from the other was somewhat of a self-defense because they were brats. The reason I say this is because their mother was never married. There seems to have been a period early in her life when she led a promiscuous love life. At least once. At least once. At least after she got older, I didn't see any signs of it. Their mom insisted on calling her Dee Dee, even though her name was Danielle. The other thing was that Dee Dee was a little older than her daughters, so from the back, well, I always waited a bit before reaching out to stroke Brenda's belly. Otherwise, I might find myself molesting Mom. And if Linda was around? I know this because one night when we were out on a date, I accidentally asked Linda. I was dating Brenda, so you ask me, what was I doing on a date with Linda? Brenda and Linda, as I mentioned, were also sassy. They enjoyed playing games. Sometimes when I thought I was with Brenda, it turned out to be Linda instead. Maybe. They seemed to enjoy it. It gave me serious doubts, too. But I tried to be careful. You see, I'd played with Brenda's breasts many times, but not Linda's. At least I didn't think so. It certainly made for some wild dating scenes. Anyway, I asked Linda, at least I think it was Linda. She candidly told me that after spring break in college, her mother was pregnant with their child. Her mother was pretty straightforward. She didn't hide her feelings. So she just told them what had happened. She wasn't the least bit ashamed of having two daughters out of wedlock, in fact. She was proud of them. There were some instances like when Brenda and I got to her house around 1 in the morning after a serious date, and her mom was there waiting for us in her robe. I kind of said, "Ouch," in preparation to get punched in the neck. It was too late to go wash my hands. They reeked of sex. Look, you kids are going to experiment with sex, that's fine. But Billy, keep your feelings to yourself because I don't want Brenda to go through what I went through. Kids at your age make life difficult. It's better to wait until you settle down. All I could do was nod and blush. Brenda just smirked. Linda peered out from behind her bedroom door, listening. I know I saw a glimpse of her. I'm pretty sure it was Linda because the few times they switched me up as a joke, she let me know about it pretty early on, so all Linda and I did was park and talk. At least it seemed that way to me, but now I'm not so sure about that. Anyway, there seemed to be a really fun party at that spring break, and quite a few men from different schools around the country attended. Apparently their moms got drunk and tried on quite a few, several of them at once. Their mom was trying to figure out which one of them was going to be the dad, but after trying on about a dozen, she finally just gave up. I'll admit I was a little shocked by this. Their mom looked like a beautiful mid to late 30s conservative housewife. After this discovery, I looked at her a little differently. Of course, it occurred to me that if she could do that, then she could be available. In my stupidity, she certainly wasn't available. It was a party, a drunken frenzy where everyone just got out of control. It happens, I guess. As a result, Brenda and Linda showed up. Rude, as I said, but I have to admit it was fun. I first met Linda on my 3rd date with Brenda. On the previous 2 dates, I had picked her up after school, and when I knocked on the door, she answered. At that moment, I didn't realize anything. She hadn't mentioned her sister once, not once. "Hey, babe," I said, already familiar enough with her, and kissed her hard. She kissed me back and then let me in. Brenda and her mother were standing there with an amused expression on their faces. I looked at the woman I had just kissed and back at her, hopelessly embarrassed. There were huge grins on the faces of all three of them. They did it on purpose. "Son, you're going to have to get used to those two. They're always up to something," their mother told me. That's when I realized it was Linda who had opened the door. We chatted for quite a while before Brenda and I left for the evening. The reason she never mentioned her twin sister was just another one of their rough games. I think it was Brenda. When we got to the park and I reached for her breasts, as I had done a couple times before, she giggled but wouldn't let me. We did shaping for about an hour and she kissed me. It was fun, but she'd also never done it before, so by the time I got home I didn't know if they were teasing me or if Brenda just wanted to do French kissing that night. Eventually I realized that Brenda had let me play with her body, and Linda had put a stop to it. It would have been even easier if Brenda had been consistent, but sometimes she pretended to be Linda. There were quite a few instances like that. I was with Brenda and I was sure of it until she resisted my advances. Then I thought it was Linda again, but in fact, Brenda was acting like Linda. Confused yet? Me too. For example, when I took Brenda to court, Linda got a ticket, and the court date coincided with a test she had to take. So Brenda handled Linda's case, and Linda took the test. Brenda did beat Linda's fine. I think the miniskirt helped. But still there is a difference. And I got to the point where I started to think it was pretty rare that they could cheat me. They couldn't fool my mother at all. She always knew instantly who was who. How she managed it, I have no idea. A few months later, Brenda and I got married, and that was a kick in the ass too. Brenda retired to a side room to change into street clothes for the reception. Linda came out. It took me about 30 seconds to realize they were being rude again, and then I agreed to the joke. It was easier that time. There were several other girls there, and they couldn't hide their amusement. At one point, I ran my hand down the back of Linda's beautiful dress, and everyone laughed at me pretending to try to grope. Well, not really pretending. I slid my hand right under her skirt. I don't think any of them expected me to try to grope her right in public, but I did. After that, they had to go to the women's room to switch back, together, of course. Always together. I also noticed right away that they switched outfits again before they left. At least that's what I thought. I made sure it was really Brenda when I finally laid her on her back that evening and made love to her. Life with Brenda was very good. She was the same strong-willed woman in the bedroom, and once we started, she wanted to make love at almost every opportunity. Then we hardly saw Linda for a few years. She went into the army, for God's sake. Brenda had planned to go there too because it was a free education, but she met me, and that put a stop to her plans. Instead, she went to a community college after I explained to her that there was no way in hell she was going to join the army. When Linda came to visit me on vacation a year or so later, it was easy to tell who was who. Linda was swarthy, like an Arab, and Brenda was not. So even though it was just a nice visit, they couldn't get away with anything. Then I discovered something else. I had seen Linda without clothes before. One day I walked into the bedroom, and Brenda had just gotten out of the shower and was changing her clothes, so I stood and watched. But it turned out that Brenda had gone out into the living room and I was standing there looking at Linda. Linda saw me, and she didn't miss a beat. It was months before I found out about it. Identical. I mean, really identical. I found out because during her visit, she stepped out of the shower again right in front of me, and I couldn't help but notice her tanned arms and face. My jaw dropped, and I blushed. "Relax, Bill. You already know what I look like." She laughed, walked over to the bed, and pulled down her panties. Not the slightest hint of bashfulness. "I didn't know," I managed. Linda laughed and said she was the one in the bedroom that time, reaching for her bra. "We look exactly the same, so it's no big deal, Bill." She smirked. I had to hide for a while until I calmed down. I didn't think Brenda would take kindly to me peeping on her sister. Naked Linda was just as hard to tell apart from naked Brenda. Same breasts, same body. They both even had the same mole on their right butt cheek. It shouldn't have had that effect on me, but it did. Linda soon went back to her outfit, and that's when I noticed Brenda's dejection. She had become quieter, much more serious. I decided that she was depressed that Linda was away from her. A couple times she sat down in terror right in our bed. She would crawl off the bed, go into the kitchen, and cry quietly. I went in there once to try to calm her down, but quickly realized it was best to just leave her alone. Sometimes she would suddenly fall silent without making a sound, and I could see her trying to breathe quietly. I didn't realize it, but I could see that she was scared. Early one morning, I was awakened by a sound. She was lying on her back, her face flushed, her hips thrusting upward. I recognized the sounds she was making in her sleep. She was in the throes of love-making activity. Waking up, she looked up at me and blushed, unable to meet my gaze. I sat down on the edge of the bed and asked her what was the matter. "Linda is unhappy. Unhappy. I can feel it," she said. "What was going on there? Were you being—" Brenda immediately realized what I was asking. "It was like a dream. Linda was with some young man. I'm sorry." "Pardon? For what? What do you mean Linda was with someone?" I asked. It was like I was cheating. I couldn't help it. "You were right here. I don't understand." I didn't quite understand what she was telling me. "Linda is miserable right now. She knows that." "She'll be okay. She'll be home soon," I told her. "I hope so. It's like a part of me is there with her. We should be together." That was another time I saw her cry for no reason I could understand. She sat quietly and small tears wet her cheeks. I hugged her for a long time and then asked her if she really realized she was acting like she was having sex in her sleep. She looked at me and blushed. "It was just a dream, I guess." That was all she said. But I never saw her do it in her sleep again. One day she woke me up talking in her sleep. "No, I can't. I'm sorry," she muttered quietly. Then she pursed her lips in her sleep, and a sad expression appeared on her face. I sat there and watched her quiet down, the muscles in her face relaxing. Several times she sat up all night, not wanting to fall asleep. One day she was rubbing her right arm, and realizing something was wrong, I checked. Her whole arm was bright red. "What is it?" I asked. "Linda burned herself." That was all she said. It was at that moment that I finally believed it. By then, I was getting used to this sort of thing, but I realized that she seemed to be feeling all the things Linda felt. Of course, that was impossible. Linda was thousands of miles away. But now I knew it wasn't impossible. After a few months, she seemed revitalized and happy. "Linda's coming home, Bill," she excitedly told me one day. I no longer needed to ask how she knew that. Linda arrived a couple weeks later and moved in with us. I didn't mind it one bit. This time, they quickly started looking the same again because Brenda started going to the tanning salon. I'll admit it was a kick watching them together. Not only did they finish each other's sentences, but they would sit together and talk to me, repeating every word. If a person closed their eyes, it appeared that one person was speaking. They even did this at their high school graduation. It seemed like they were co-salutatorians, getting exactly the same grades. I was able to see it because they had a tape, and Linda brought it over to show me. It was hilarious. They stood in front of the whole class, and each of them said every word. It thrilled the whole house. But I noticed one peculiarity about Linda. Although she looked and acted the same as before, for short periods of time her thoughts seemed to be somewhere else. I half expected some sort of shenanigans, but there were none. Instead, Brenda began to act as if her thoughts were somewhere else as well. I also noticed that Brenda always had a tiny trace of lavender on her, just like Linda. Now there wasn't. Little things, but in a situation like this, the smallest things become noticeable. Linda came to live with us full-time since her tour abroad was over. She did act moody at times. I figured she'd had a rough experience and it was affecting Brenda's mood, but maybe time would fix things. And so it did. A few weeks later, Brenda and Linda were back together. They started wearing the same clothes, finishing each other's sentences. Everything was back to normal. Coming home, I had to be very careful to kiss the right woman. I missed once and almost took Linda's blouse off before I realized there wasn't even a hint of lavender scent. I stopped, grinned, and said, "Oops." She just laughed at me, and I found Brenda in the kitchen and pestered her there. "One of these days I'm going to end up in bed with the wrong woman," I joked. Brenda tilted her head and grinned. "Would you know?" she asked with a sly smile. "I don't know. I've seen you naked, but I've never seen Linda." I lied. I never mentioned the incident when Linda came out of the shower. "Are you sure?" She grinned even wider. "Yes, I'm sure. I know every inch of you and I can tell the difference." Brenda only smiled, reached down and pulled a roast out of the oven, which momentarily distracted me from her words. "Bill says he can always tell us apart," Brenda said to Linda at dinner. "I don't know. He almost kissed me when he got home tonight." Linda smirked. "So he was going to try to grope me." They both giggled. "I can tell," I told them. "Oh, yeah? How?" asked Brenda. "I just can, that feeling." I replied, not wanting to tell them I had lavender because they would both start using it again. Linda hadn't used perfume at all since coming home. They didn't dare use cologne or perfume when they were in the field overseas. Habits had taken root over the years, and since the two of them always enjoyed fooling people, it gave me a slight advantage. That night in bed, Brenda lay snuggling her nice soft breasts against my chest. We had just finished a surprisingly energetic session. Plus, she was now wiggling her hips, trying to get me to make love again. That was working too. I could smell the lavender notes. They were a little stronger than usual. "Bill, I would have known, you know that," she told me, suddenly sitting up straight and serious. "You'd know you know?" I asked. "If you ever went to bed with my sister," she said. "Oh, don't worry. I would never go to bed with your sister. Besides, how would you know?" I laughed. "I'd feel it." "What, you think that if I had sex with Linda, you'd feel it?" "Yes, I would feel it, just like I did that time." "How?" "I know you two are connected in some crazy way, but this is too much. I always thought it was just dreams or something." "She can feel when you and I make love," she said. "That's impossible," I told her. "It isn't. We both experience pleasure at the same time, and very good ones at that." She giggled at that. I just stared at her. No way in the world would I have believed that. "It's true, Bill. We both do. Always have. She was a virgin when she went into the army, but you and I aren't, and she already knew. She feels it every time we make love." I still didn't quite believe it. "Do you remember when she was gone and I got depressed?" "Yeah, I remember. She had a soldier boyfriend she met there. When they made love, I felt it. I felt everything. Like I was cheating on you. She knew it, knew how I felt about it. It made her unhappy. She feels it when I'm with you. We both feel it." "Really? Oh my God. No wonder." I was beginning to believe her now. "Isn't there some kind of medication we could go to the doctor?" "Number. It wouldn't do any good. But we both know what we need to do. That's why I'm telling you this." "What do you have to do?" I asked, not quite understanding. "You have to have sex with both of us. Can you do that? Please." She leaned back, her face completely serious. "Both of us? You mean together? The three of us?" "Yes." "But wouldn't that cause problems? Wouldn't you be jealous?" "No, of course not. We can't be jealous. We're the same person as it is. I know it doesn't make sense. You need to be us to realize that." Wow, I don't know what to say, but wow, I guess. "So that's how it's going to be? You'll be with both of us, love us both? And you're okay with that?" she asked. You want us to be a threesome? Like, together? A threesome? Yes, nothing else would work. I didn't have to think about it for long. If that's what you want, I'm willing to give it a try. I felt myself starting to get aroused at that prospect. It was totally unexpected. She noticed this and giggled slightly, then smiled widely. Great. Okay then. I'll go get Brenda. Surely she already knows. She jumped off the bed and smiled at me again. I was already hard as a rock at this prospect. I leaned back. This was going to be something else. Two beautiful women in the same bed with me. In such a situation, no man could refuse. Wait a minute. I'll go get Brenda? Did she just say that? To Brenda? Does that mean... I started laughing. It was hysterical, amazing, wonderful. What's so funny? Asked Linda, stopping in the doorway. How long have we been having sex? I asked with a huge grin. We never tell, she replied, turning to call out to her sister. She stopped. Brenda, of course, was already there, both of them without clothes. Yes, identical. They hugged and then plopped down on the bed with me. I love you, Bill, they both said at the same time. Brats, muttered I. Then things got pretty active. It's a very wild ride for sure. We get funny looks in public when I'm with one in my arms. Their mother laughed when we told her about it, then shrugged. I was wondering if you kids would guess that. That was all she said about it. Dee Dee was there the day Linda and I got married at a justice of the peace a few miles away, in another town. Brenda was there too. The guy who made us repeat our vows looked amused when I kissed them both. Is that legal? Probably not, and we didn't care. It made the three of us feel better, that's all. Another funny thing is that both of them have everything coming at the same time, at least earlier. Both of their belly buttons stick out the same amount. I make them lie on the bed and rub cocoa butter on their bellies. You wouldn't believe what the doctor said when he came out, with a strange expression on his face. What is it? I'm used to strange expressions. His nurse was standing right behind him, holding 2 sonogram printouts. She, too, had almost the same expression on her face. Twins, he announced. Then the biggest grin I'd ever seen appeared on his face. Which one? I asked. Both of them. Oh, no. One thing I did, after all. Having 2 completely identical women is fun, sure, but it's nice to always know which one is which. Finally, a way to always be sure. Up until this point, the only way to be sure was to ask, and I was never sure I'd get a straight answer. Sisters, the end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.